Is 8:51. Sarah, good morning to you.
How are you?
Cork are back, or are they?
Yes, they are. And you know what the big thing is? It was the hunger that we saw on Saturday night. And for Cork teams, since maybe 2013, when they last got to, I suppose, an All-Ireland final, that was the hunger and desire that's been lacking in a team from Cork over the last 8-9 years. And that team, that likeability, that personality Saturday night, that's what Cork people will follow. And actually, I think they've probably gained a lot of fans from literally that last 30 minutes.
I was texting with a friend of mine who is a Limerick supporter and who was like, Cork, they're always flaky. Every time they get back level, they can see the goal. That's why blah, blah, blah. And then by the end, it was like, well, actually, you know what? Maybe things have changed. Because that was the big knock on them, that they're a bit soft, that they don't have that character, that personality to come back. And look, one swallow doesn't make a summer, but it's really important that they can build on this and actually rally around the whole point that against Tipperary, who were really, really dangerous, they didn't go away when they had every excuse to go away. Yeah,
and in previous years, I'll go back as far as 2014, Croke Park, quarter final against Tipp. Shane McGrath was captain of Tipp that year. That was a flaky Cork team who didn't show up, who sat back, who allowed Tipp to dominate them. And there's players on the team on Saturday night who were there in 2014. So for those guys to now have that, it's pretty impressive for those guys to find that hunger, to find that desire so late in their careers.
Did it feel like Cork were targeting goals? Because it feels like they had only one goal chance maybe against Waterford, and banging in 4 at the weekend is a positive sign that they're maybe going for them.
I thought it was stunning, but it's their pace, and it's their pace. They put Tipp on the back foot. Let's be honest, in the first half, Tipp were able to read the game really well. Brian O'Mara, Ronan Marr. And in the second half, Cork's only option was to literally burn them for pace. And they have it, so they used it.
Were they bullied a bit in that first half, or was it like the tactics were wrong, that it made it look like they were being bullied a bit?
I was a bit confused with the change up in midfield, with Luke Meade not starting. Brian Roach had a new midfield partner. It just seemed a bit funny when they had gone so well against Waterford and had dominated that area, when the likes of Jamie Barron had been doing so well previous. For Pat Ryan to mix it up, I think it took Cork time to settle.
The thinking must have been somehow horses for courses, that it just didn't work out in that first half.
Yeah, and look, we talk about Noel McGrath all the time, like his vision, his distribution of the ball. He has so much experience, and I think that was just a little too much. It was a bridge too far for Tommy O'Connell, and it was a bridge too far for Brian Roach. So in that second half, you had Luke Meade coming in, you had Tim O'Mahony, massive performance for Tim O'Mahony, and Declan Dalton, lads, like that kid, I met him in Tenerife last Christmas. He was in a boot. He wasn't in Cork's plans last year with the old management. His career looked finished, and what a performance he gave on Saturday night.
It's when there's chaos as well. We often talk about the great Dubs team, that when games get chaotic, they keep the heads. I'm not comparing Cork's hurlers to the Dubs, but when it gets chaotic, they seem to be able to keep their heads.
Well, the build-up for that last goal, there was no panic. It was Dara Fitz, there was Shane Kingston, the build-up, and Brian Hayes was on the pitch 20 seconds. And it's not, he didn't go towards him to look for the ball. He actually stepped back and allowed the ball to come across and casually put it in, and then the hands go up and the crowd reacts. It was stunning, but it was the build-up play was just no panic. You're right, it was very Dublin-esque.
A couple of big away games coming up for them now next.
I think though, buoyed by that win, that draw, if they had lost to Tipp, lads,
totally different environment, totally different atmosphere, total different sense.
They'd have been peeling themselves off the floor.
Yeah.
So I think going into this now, they're top. You know, the score difference will be a thing that it will come down to in the end, but I think massive confidence coming out of the game.
What about Tipp?
I'd say they're sickened that they left that game behind. Have to be, because they controlled it for so much of the first half. They outscored them 12 points to 4 in that spell before half time, and then came back again and got these goals. Garrod O'Connor's goal, Keown's goal. They did everything right and they couldn't kill Cork off. That was magic.
Because even when you're listening to Noel McGrath after the match, it's like he wasn't aware of what had happened. He seemed a bit shell-shocked. He was like, what just happened there?
You couldn't believe that Cork could find 2 goals. 68 minutes on the clock, Tipp are winning by 4. The game's over. And Tipp couldn't see it out. I think that Tipp defence is phenomenal. So I think they were exposed, really badly exposed.
Yeah, I still think Tipperary are going to have a long... I didn't see the injury to Jason Ford, what happened, but he'd already 4 points in the first 16 minutes. He was, and then his replacement is also great. So they do have strength and depth. Hopefully it's not going to be out for too long. I think I understand that they'll be disappointed, but they they got a draw, and that's an away game for them. An away point, you win your rest of your home games. They're home and hosed.
Yeah, I think it's just with the dominance that they showed for the first, say, 40 minutes and the way they capitulated in the last 10, because they did. You know, they had a stranglehold on Cork and they let Cork back in. I think they will be disappointed.
Okay, so you think there could be some psychological impact of like a bit of doubt in their heads now, even when they are winning games?
I think you can't. Last year in Semple Stadium when Cork, you know, beat them for a stick, it hasn't been that long ago that they were losing games and that they weren't organised. So they've done incredibly well in the league. They were exceptional against Cork for 40 minutes on Saturday night, and they allowed Cork back in. So you have to. There's doubt. There is.
Were you at the game?
I was in Oma.
I was going to say, so I'm opening a can of worms here, but the game wasn't on terrestrial television.
Well, it suited me because I was able to watch it on GAAGO.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah.
But look, for a game of that calibre, and there's so few games in the year that have that meat, and if you look at the two provincial football finals on Sunday, there wasn't any entertainment in them. I think RTE are really, really missing a trick here by not looking at those games and allowing those games to be showcasing the hurling, because now we've missed 2 games. We've missed the Clare and Limerick game as well.
There's more to come.
It's such a small window for the game to be showcased, and the Galway and Kilkenny games over the weekend were.
Far be it from me to defend RTE, right? But it's actually not their responsibility to showcase the game. It's the GAA's responsibility to showcase the game, and it's in RTE's interest to get as much money as they possibly can out of GAAGO because they've made an investment in it, and it's just a business now. So what they've got to do is exploit, in Donalog's word, the investment to try and get that money back.
So you're saying the big games are the pay-per-view games,
exactly,
and that nobody's going to pay to see Sligo get beaten by Galway, is what you're saying.
Exactly. It's bad business, and the GAA and the president, Larry McCarthy, said people are happy enough now after COVID to pay for stuff. Maybe they're not. I don't know. Maybe
the coronation.
Maybe they got that wrong. But
if we're looking at how many people attended the Cork games, 36,000 people in Cork on Saturday night. There was 13,000 people at Galway and Kilkenny a couple of weeks ago. That was on the telly. If you go to the game, then obviously there's an interest in seeing the game, and then tenfold interest countrywide. It's not physically possible for everyone to get to the games every weekend. The games, it's 9 weeks, it's 9 weekends, 11 weekends of hurling out of a 52-week year. Get your act in order, lads.
Yeah, I think that there's a wider conversation to be had about promoting the game. Are you serious about promoting the game? Are you actually just delighted that there's 5 or 6 counties? It's going to be good for those 5 or 6 counties, and that's all we need to keep it alive and keep charging the big sponsorship deals. I feel a little bit like the GAA pays lip service to the whole notion of promoting hurling. A little bit, I would say.
I agree.
We're kind of scratching away at this, but the fundamental issue is that they're not really trying to grow the game significantly. They're happy with where it is. It's performing grand. Next problem. Like, that's what it feels like.
Why would they be happy where it is, though?
Well, why not? Because, Limerick are one of the greatest teams of all time. They had 30,000 in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. They had however many they had at the Gaelic grounds the previous week. But
is it not embarrassing that you'd 9,000 people in Croke Park to watch Dublin Wexford?
They don't care, though.
The game on Saturday
should care. That's embarrassing.
It's not particularly embarrassing.
The game should have been in Parnell Park for starters. But
the Dubs wanted it in Croke Park. It turned out, you listen to them afterwards.
He said exactly what we thought he was going to say, which was, this is a young team. They don't have any, I suppose, skin in the game in Parnell Park. It isn't their fortress. So ultimately, they wanted to be in Croke Park. But 9,000 people.
I know.
One point as well. There were no Saturday game highlights this week or last week. Why does anybody? Because I do remember there being a massive announcement about there being a new Saturday game show on RTE. That was like one of their big kind of flagship things. Like, oh, we're great. We've got Saturday highlights
with Damien Lawler. I thought that was going to be a weekly thing. So.
And then they don't have Saturday highlights for the 2 weeks where the whole country's like,
this
game's pretty good. I must go and check out. Oh,
and then they showed the football before the hurling.
Wonder.
I don't know. I think it was nearly 10:30 last night before the hurling came on the TV again. So it was nearly 20 to 11.
A weeknight, yeah.
Yeah. So it hasn't done anything for the game of hurling in the last week. All it might do is people might buy more papers because it's the only place you can read anything.
It's about to get much worse
with the Tailteann Cup.
Well, and not just the Tailteann Cup, but the Sam Maguire is actually going to be good. There'll be a good game every week, and that's all anybody's going to be talking about as the hurling championship careers towards the Munster final, All-Ireland quarter-finals, semi-finals, and the final. I'm sure will get its due regard, but it might not. You know, I think hurling is being swamped by football, and I don't really think that within the organisation centrally they care enough about that. And I think that like it'll be easy for us to have this kind of conversation about GAAGO. And for me, it's a bit of a sideshow. And I actually think hurling need to do more about it, and they need to talk about it themselves.
Yeah, I suppose if
they haven't got their own house in order in some ways.
Well, if you look at the presidents previously, I suppose Nicky Brennan from Kilkenny was a big proponent of hurling, and Larry McCarthy is more football, I would say. Jarlath Burns, I suppose more football. Do we need and now Sean Kelly was football, but he loved his hurling, I think. So
hurling president and Gaelic football president. So you're pitching.
Absolutely. There we go. Room for all.
Not the worst idea.
But there has to be some balance here, and there's not right now.
No, it's and I do think that the tsunami of football games that are coming, that are going to be evenly matched all around the country, like Markievicz Park, I think will be full for the Kildare visit, and rightly so. We should talk about Dublin Wexford, like the actual game itself. You were critical of Wexford in the league, and it's coming home to roost.
That league game, that first night out against Galway in the league, it was a horrible night, but the wide count was outrageous. And I think Niall Corcoran was interviewed at half time, and he pointed to the fact that they just weren't accurate enough. And then Saturday evening, Croke Park, 19 wides against Dublin. They came back from 5 points down 2 or 3 times and kept it a game. But ultimately, if you're hitting 19 wides, I think they had 51 shots to Dublin's 31 shots. So they were out shooting them, and 19 wides racked up. It's just not good enough for an inter-county team when Munster fare is so frenetic, and you have Leinster just...
And they had 51 shots to Dublin's 31, I think. So it's not like they weren't shooting. It was the wides that killed them. 19
wides, lads, on a Saturday evening in Croke Park.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like they hoped, and hope isn't a tactic or a strategy, that they hoped that the injured players coming back would just fit in seamlessly and everything would be grand, but it didn't work out for them.
No, and look, I was in Páirc Uí Chaoimh for the Wexford and Cork game this year in the league, and Lee Chin that day, I came in afterwards and said he was magic. And I suppose they probably suffer in the fact that when he's not playing, the team can't get used to playing with him.
Exactly.
And Wexford just don't seem to find a rhythm, and I think Roy O'Connor is one of the best forwards in the game as well, so they do have scoring forwards. So to be racking up 19 points, and Conor MacDonald as well, like I'm naming players, and Charlie McGuckin this year has been brilliant as well. I just think if it's boiling down to accuracy, and we've heard that word a lot in the last couple of weeks, Waterford the same, is there too much tactics, and is it to go back to basics? We talk about Kerry football and we talk about Dublin football, and it's the kicking game. Well, it's the shooting game, lads. It has to be about the hurling, and I think maybe we're too tactical in hurling now. We're losing the basics.
They probably did well to get back to level a few times, even Wexford, regardless of all the wides. Probably should mention Donal Burke and his unbelievable shooting.
Yeah, I know that. Look, Donal is, I suppose, a once in a generational talent for Dublin GA, and they're incredibly lucky to have him. This is a very young Dublin team, and Michael O'Donoghue, who's doing, I think it's a project. It has to be a project. Because
the progress from drawing with Antrim to this is fairly phenomenal, and that's one of those wins that they get, and it's just a sense of like, okay, we can actually build on this now, you know.
But that Antrim team is backboned by the Dunloy lads, and I've been watching them since November. They're coming to the end of their kind of, I suppose, spell. It's 6 or 7 months is what they had in them as a group, the likes of Neil McManus. I think those lads are tired now, and if you see the result, like against Kilkenny in the league, I think they lost by 7, and against Kilkenny at the weekend, it was a cricket score. Kilkenny scored 5 goals. I think that Dublin team probably got the sting in the tail from Antrim, you know, and that's what they had left in them. So I don't know. I think Dublin are better than what they were in against Antrim, and I suppose that they're probably on an upward trend now, but it's not going to be enough, lads. Like Galway, Wexford, and one of the teams in Munster is going to lose out, and it's really disappointing because one of those teams in Munster is not worse than Dublin or Wexford.
No, I mean, they could fix this with some kind of wildcard playoff weekend where we're like everybody's, you know, it's proper old school championship.
Sure.
You know,
if the third and fourth place in both was given was given a rattle at it.
It's just the fourth place in Munster versus the third place in Leinster, because we accept that on the basis of league blah 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 blah. We can work it out some way to make it fair.
I think the Munster lads would be happy with that. They'd be happy with a rattle as well. So
for sure.
maybe that's what we'll decide. Yeah, a hurling president and a fourth place, third place payoff. Perfect.
We fixed it.
Well, I was going to say, Sarah's passion for the game and analysis is always class, says Sean. Hurling should just split from the GAA and not wait for them to grow the game. Hashtag live hurling. Hashtag joking, not joking.
I love that.
There's an idea.
Saudi Arabia, come on down. Your time is now.
Well, the lads were in Uganda, remember? If Taggy Fogarty was in Uganda a while back.
Right.
There's massive promotion going on there. There's less going on in Sligo. I think, actually, did Sligo have a good old run against Kerry?
Might have done, yeah. Decent.
Yeah, so I think the weekend had that gold on Saturday night in Archie, and outside of that, hurling had a light touch this weekend.
It's still 50-50 that one of Tipp or Cork won't make it. Do you know? Close enough to it.
On the balance of probabilities now, you're looking at Tipp getting through, having the acumen to get over the line in the last two games. Just they're just more mature, and we said that at the league. They're a little further along.
And so, how much of a disaster would it be for this young Cork team not to have an All-Ireland quarter-final to look forward to?
I think it would be seen as a failure in Cork first off. And that's what the issue is with the structure, is that this Cork team doesn't deserve to go out when you look at the competition in Leinster.
There's no obviously, is there patience in Cork if that happens?
On the basis of Saturday night's performance, yes, because I think it's stacked against Cork and Clare right now, in terms of what they have to do to get through. I think everyone's going to appreciate that one good team is going to go out. In other years, it wouldn't be justified and people would not be happy with, giving up games or losing games. But you're talking, they might lose one game and end up going out.
But if they beat Clare in 2 weeks, they're through. But the problem is that's an Ennis.
And that's obviously Clare's fortress right now, and a very enjoyable place for them to go. But I don't think Cork will be afraid of going to Ennis, lads. That's and the older Cork players, the guys who were there since 2014, I suppose they owe Clare. They owe Clare one. I know Colm Galvin was on the radio last week, and I never forget him powering towards goal in 2013 and breaking all the Cork ranks. So I think it's a lot for both Cork and Clare and Tipp, I suppose. But we're assuming that Limerick are going to.
Is that game on telly?
No idea.
No, I don't actually think that it is.
Right, Sarah, good stuff.
Thanks, lads.
Thanks a million for joining us.